Okay, let's move to closure here. I wanted to invite Matt up with me on the stage here for a moment. And the thought was to have the facilitation team just take a shot at trying to name what we also heard as some of the thematic ideas, cross-cutting from the presentations and from the audience coming forward. Matt's going to name a few of those to start. I will add a few of those as well. There may be some additional ones that percolate over the evening in your dinner conversation, and we'll probably put that up here as a recap for our beginning tomorrow morning, as a way of a placeholder in where our conversation has led us now, some of the current questions, the thoughts, and things to explore going forward. Key themes, Matt?
Great. So the most obvious one that came about in the majority of the presentations was each of the teams had one good-looking person and one well-spoken person. So is that a good start?
Yes, indeed.
So to play off several pieces that came through, one was the differences and yet similarities, and yet those unique differences that have to be accounted for and understood for people to compare, to even begin to try and compare. There are unique differences that when you get into that mode of comparison and contrasting, that you automatically get in trouble, especially from a naive perspective.
And I would add to that, I think the essence of it is we have to understand context in order to understand the issues and the priority of those issues. Your contexts are all different. And without an appreciation for those, we won't be able to engage in this conversation in a collective way.
The standard challenges that we face in an industry, one in developing countries, another in developed countries, associated with regulations. Some of them immature, others very mature, and the challenges that they place on the systems and the infrastructure themselves. Huge implications.
Terrific.
The export-import side of how these systems come together in a global market-based world. And the challenge that we have then of this market-based world with developing regulations that come into that interface as well. It's dynamic and it's very challenging, especially with metrics that can appear to be accurate, but the robustness of them need to be scrutinized. The standard pieces that we've come with an intense land-based production system, the ruminant herself as a mature cow, of course, and the beauty of the transformation of photosynthesis into protein and calories, and how that in its initial metric is daunting, and yet then you look at other applications of that land that have been referred to, and you have to, it becomes an interesting dialogue. And the displacement of that or scrutiny of that is challenging. The perception of it is really different from different views. The classic issues of water, land, and greenhouse gas emissions, and the convergence of them with the other issues that we mentioned make it the issues that our children and our children's children have better get their act together on. That's it.
Terrific. Thank you. Panel. Further reflections on cross-cutting themes as you listen to each other. Anything else that came out or surfaced for you beyond Matt's first take at what some of those thematic thoughts and issues and key points may have been from your diverse discussions? Did anything else occur to you that you think is worth emphasizing across your different presentations? Yes?
I'll give you the pretty answer from Australia. I think the universal theme across all presentations was that in order to have sustainability, you have to have viability. And it was mentioned by everyone in different ways about who's going to pay, but if I can only stress to you all that it's absolutely fundamental for we as producers. In order for us to be sustainable, we must be viable. And that means all along the supply chain, we need to see, maybe we need to see the producing sector, the cow-calf operator, the people who don't have the ability to just operate in a margin game, we need to see them getting a larger share of the consumer dollar. The other thing I would say is that the universal theme across all of us is that all beef producers, no matter where they are in the world, are incredibly passionate people about what they do and where they do it. And the majority of us probably are all in family businesses where those farms get inherited from one generation to the next. We all have a motivation that we want to leave our land in a better state than we found it because we want to have it ongoing. It's a very strong thing in our business. Sometimes we would be more financially or economic viable to go and live at the beach and put our money, sell our farms and put our money in the bank, but none of us do that. We stay in an industry where we make small returns because we do it because we're passionate about what we do. So my challenge to the NGOs and people who are really focused on the environmental side of things in the audience is to say to you is that you have a group of people across the world who are incredibly passionate about what they do and the environment in which they do it. The challenge to you is to come up with a way of empowering those people to move towards your goals. Because when you empower those people who are passionate about what they do, you'll have a really, really powerful army. And the way to do that is not through the big stick and through legislation.
Very good.
Terrific. Thank you. A couple more thoughts?
Okay, I mean, the one for me, obviously coming from the African background, thinking about China, thinking about India, thinking about Africa, is how we engage with the informality of these huge markets. And I think it's actually a question probably for the next 2 or 3 days for me, is it good use of our energy to engage in such a massive informal market? And if we relate back to Jason's presentation at the start of the day about moving that production curve, is it better to look at investing our energy in the curve that we know, which is the export market centered on this side of the world? Or do we actually look at investing some time in China, India, and Africa, which will be a massive job? So one of the things I'd like to get out in the next 2 or 3 days is how do we deal with the informal market?
Yes. Terrific. Thank you. Final thought from another panel member?
Yeah. 2 simple thoughts that are just reinforcing, I think, areas we've already discussed, which is the importance of trade between countries to balance the books on production, because different countries have different resource advantages, and in a high CO2 equivalent cost product like beef, then we ought to recognise that trading the product is going to be sensible. And the other one is just how complex it is to define sustainability. We've got those 3 main pillars of ethical, environmental and economic, but below that there are tens, if not dozens, of other components that need consideration. So yes, coming up with a sustainable definition in some sort of balanced scorecard approach involves an awful lot of different parts to take into account.
Terrific. A final thought?
Yeah, just a final thought. Brazil has developed in the last century a model of tropical agriculture and animal science. We actually are now technology players in tropical agriculture and technology that can be used in Africa and other places in Latin America. So we now, there's a difference, I think, between the developing countries and developed countries. And we have this feeling that now that we actually have the chance to export and to take people out of poverty and to generate income for millions of families in Brazil. And we have this feeling that now people are saying, no, you cannot do that because it's unsustainable. And I believe we can do that. We actually can produce and we can export. And like I said, the key to it is technology, and technology that we already have. So if anyone, farmers, government, the private industries, we are all busy in Brazil getting together and thinking about how to make this technology accessible for everyone. I think that's the only way out of this. Thank you.
Bill, a final comment?
Yeah, I would, just on the gentleman from France when he brought up the regulation and the EU, as I look at regulations and the impact they have on the goals for me as a producer of beef, and I look at the EU and the impact they've had on that, it doesn't look like a model I think we should follow worldwide. The EU used to be able to raise its own beef, and now they're a net exporter. And if we want to smother producers in regulation, I think we can expect much the same. So as we look at the challenges that Dr. Clay put forth to us, it would seem to me that excessive regulation would be antagonistic to the goal of having a sustainable beef industry.
Thank you, Bill. Let me add one more additional theme. Was there something else you wanted to add? No problem. Okay. One more theme as we move to closure and some final comments. And that is something that I heard from all of you, which is a strong and well-deserved pride for the strides that this industry has made over recent decades, and naming many of those strides towards increased sustainability as important reference points to the progress over the recent years of this industry's development. That was also counterbalanced, I think, with a humility, a certain humility about the need to continue to innovate, the need to continuously improve, and the recognition that not all is perfect. Many things are going well, but not everything is where it should be. And I think this was a baseline of the nature of this conference, which was that we all came here under this principal recognition that there was opportunity for improvement. The degree to which we see that opportunity will vary among us, as well as vary among regions, depending on the challenges you face and the successes that you've achieved as of late. But as we transition into tomorrow, which is entirely about small group engagement, discussion, and conversation of these issues, I think the spirit of engagement, of partnership, and optimism that we can build on the trajectory towards greater sustainability that already exists, and also begin to name our perceived priorities and what needs further investigation and further resolution as core issues, is the essence of our dialogue. And to try and name those things more clearly by the time we leave, such that we may be able to seize those new opportunities going forward for collaboration. This was the additional theme I was picking up.